Welcome to Strangers and Pilgrims. This is a UK-based Christian podcast to encourage the saints in the days of our pilgrimage. My name's Mike. I'm a teacher of teachers. I live in the Black Country in the West Midlands in England, and I attend a local evangelical church that's just up the road. Stephen.
My name's Stephen White. I'm a second-hand book dealer and I live in Bradford in West Yorkshire with my wonderful wife. We have 6 children, which might well be pertinent for our discussion today.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to be picking up on the Noahic covenant that we started looking at last time. So to do that, our reading is going to be from Genesis 8, verse 20, just into the first part of chapter 7. So I'll read that, and then Stephen can just introduce us to the episode. So here we go. So this is Genesis chapter 8 and verse 20. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savour. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth.
Amen. So we're going to talk this time about fruitfulness and what it means to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth.
So we've established this covenant is binding upon us today. And the first part of the covenant that God made with Noah and his sons was be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. So You've already said, and rightly so, that's a repetition of the command that was given to Adam and Eve in the garden. What does that look like then in the UK for young people thinking about marriage and so on?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth? Are we saying have as many babies as you can possibly have? Or are there some other factors to be considered? I recognise I'm asking this to a father of 6, but go for it anyway.
That has been thrown at me as an accusation before now. Okay, so this is an echo of what God said to Adam, and it's a deliberate echo because God's intention was for the world to be full, was to be populated. It wasn't supposed to be wilderness from one continent to the next. It was supposed to be inhabited, cultivated, looked after, ruled over, all of these things. It wasn't supposed to be sparse. And so because all of the people who lived beforehand have been wiped out, this is a necessity for Noah and his family in order to do anything like what God wanted the world to be. So they had to have children in order to start filling the world as God intended it to be. So it can be easy to look at that and say, oh, well, it was necessary then because there were 8 people on the world, and now we've got 8 billion. So it's a different scenario for us here now than it was for them. And I'm basically going to say that it isn't.
Okay.
I can't see, because it would seem really weird to me to take the blessings of the covenant, the protection from flood, the consistency of the covenant, the springtime and harvest, and the day and night, but say we can pick and choose with the commands of the covenant. That would be really weird to me and inconsistent. And the reason why we might be tempted to do that is because we think we understand things better than God does. And that is a temptation to think, well, yes, God said that, but look at this situation. So I'm just gonna set that up first, and then I'm gonna say that the covenant is with all people. It's with, if you like, humanity, the human race, which means that it can be kept as a group, even if individuals act either wrongly or not fully maximizing their potential for it within the covenant commands. So be fruitful and multiply doesn't necessarily mean every person have as many offspring as they possibly can. But it does mean, in the macro, the big picture, that people do need to be having more children than themselves.
Right.
In the big picture.
Yeah.
And that's actually been sort of normal for the whole of human history up until the 1960s. And so we live in a time now where we think we can sort of mess around with this pattern, and it's that kind of thing that bothers me. I'm not going to say I'm not going to try and set up like a bureau where we count how many offspring people have had and say, well, you haven't had enough, so you failed, that sort of thing. I'm looking at the big picture. What is our worlds, and bring it back to us, because I think there is a national element to this. What is our country's attitude to fruitfulness and filling the earth? And to me, it seems quite clear. The message I got through school, the message you get from mainstream media, is there are too many people. People are a problem, not a blessing. Children are an inconvenience. They're expensive. They can be annoying. They're draining. They get in the way of your career. The word nobody uses is fruitful.
Yeah.
And so I think societally we've gone a long way away from the ideals set out in this covenant. And I think as such we are breaking as a country. We are breaking this command of the covenant, and that's not because the lady who lives 3 doors down has only had one child, or the lady who lives that way hasn't had any children. That's not the issue. The issue isn't individual circumstances. The issue is big picture sort of philosophy and theology that then informs those individual choices and circumstances. Because it's plain from scriptures, God sometimes withholds children, and that's not him refusing, breaking this covenant. It's changing the individual circumstances of one person or a small group of people in order for a specific reason, but it doesn't change the general pattern of fruitfulness and replenishing the earth. So having said that, I think there should be a general attitude of positivity towards family and children. And not just in, we've got one child, we dote on them and do everything they want, but in terms of healthy, well-raised numbers. Like, I think the fact that my 6 is considered crazy, and it is considered crazy. We reckon 4 is the upper end of acceptability in Christian circles.
Right.
You will find that sort of 3 is considered quite a lot these days anyway.
Yeah.
And 4 is like probably a mistake. Like people will sort of think, well, yeah, we could see you as stretched. Nobody would choose to have 4, but we'll sort of grant you that. As soon as you have 5, it's like, well, you should have learned your lesson. And everything about your life is
6.
now fair game. People will talk about everything that they would not say publicly to someone who's got 2 or 3 children. It's really interesting. We're not the only other people who've experienced this. So it seems to be in like, certainly in our circles,
questioning your sanity, questioning your financial decisions, all that sort of stuff.
Our understanding of biology, like everything, like openly and publicly. Like, and I'm not talking like lads, like you get a group of lads together, and I tell my neighbours who aren't Christians, and they're all making jokes and stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like Christians who are like seriously confused about whether you know what's happening.
Sure.
And what and just why people, especially people in our situation, like we're not very well off, sort of small house, like why would you do that to yourself? And there is a line of thinking in Christians of why would you do that to the world?
Right.
Like, why would you make things worse? And so there are lots of these things which have been assumptions of I would actually say a lot of them are satanic, okay, that have been swallowed by the church without even realizing. The kind of things that it was the water you swam in secular school.
Yeah.
Environmentalism, sort of human negativity, that sort of thing was just assumed so much that you started to assume it.
Right.
Without, and it didn't seem to matter that the catastrophe changed over the course of your schooling and your life. It was basically humans are the problem. And I understand it. Humans can cause massive problems. And we fail at other aspects of the covenants that God has given us. We're supposed to care for the world as well as rule over it. And we fail at that a lot. And so it's not that there's no examples you can point to say, what a mess. But there is something unhealthy in unfruitfulness.
Sure.
I think it surprises me that is present in Christians.
Yeah.
And it is present in Christians. And I actually think, interesting, going back to sort of the topic of the last episode about the children in the UK, I actually think this has huge implications, like sociological implications and economic implications for our country. Because if you're not having more children than the previous generation, that's going to start to change everything, especially when you couple that with increasing longevity. And I don't want to get too sort of bogged down in the exact numbers, but the UK's birth rate is something like 1.6 now. I think it might have dropped slightly from that. And so that number is, they measure on number of women per children. No, children per women. Yeah. It's a number of children per women. So in a normal sort of Western society, you need slightly above 2 in order to sustain what they call a level birth rate of you're replacing yourself effectively, because there needs to be a father for the children. The poorer your country, that number needs to be slightly higher because infant mortality is greater. But in the West, it's actually probably just less than 2.1. So it's about 2. And so we're significantly below that, but the thing and people say, well, why is the population still increasing? But that's because on average, people are living longer lives. And so what's going to happen is you have, if you sort of imagine the generations going up in blocks, at some point, instead of 2 blocks going up, they'll be supported by just 1 block coming up. But those blocks at the top, because they normally previously be capped at like 65 or whatever it is, now they're living to 90 or 85. There's just more people around. But what it's going to mean is that there's more and more older people who are out of work, not economically active and dependent upon other people, are going to be dependent on a smaller and smaller group of people. And the only way to fix that is either to make their lives much harder, to put more pressure on the people who are supporting them, or to bring more people in to try and boost the working age population. And we're seeing all 3 of those sort of fighting for prominence in the UK. And I think because of the way politics works in the UK, it's very, very hard to do anything to make the lives of retired people harder. And so more and more is being borne by young people, and lots of younger people are having to be brought in from other parts of the world to keep the whole thing going. And that's a direct consequence of our disobedience to be fruitful and multiply. If over the last 60 years we'd had on average more like 2 even just like 2.4 children, something like that, because that was the
that's the classic line.
That was the thing when we were going. It was 2.4 children. If that had been sustained, we wouldn't be facing quite the same. But we might well be facing different problems, but we wouldn't be facing the kinds of problems that we're looking at in the UK now. So it turns out going away from these covenants and the big pictures in them actually has huge consequences for your nation and for the world. And I think we're going to discover this over the next, it's hard to know, certainly 50 years. that actually dropping birth rates, a lack of of fruitfulness and multiplicity, is going to result in a poorer world for everyone.
Right.
And I don't want to get too sidetracked on this. It will open a massive doorway for the demonic influence of artificial intelligence as a solution for that problem.
Right.
But maybe that's a topic for a future episode.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on that sort of general, going right back to start? What does it mean to be fruitful? What does it mean to multiply? What should it look like as it's played out in our lives?
So I think in terms of those three words, fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth, suggests to me that there is the third of those, the replenish, is the goal of the fruitful and multiply. That's how it reads to me. Be fruitful and multiply, so that you might replenish the earth. So I think my view is that it's fair to have the sense that there might come a time when the earth is full. I don't think that that's necessarily a problematic concept. I do agree with you that we're constantly told there's no more room, and I don't think the earth is currently full. But I think there is a possibility that should the Lord tarry his return, there is a possibility the earth could approach some form of fullness, and that would in fact be the replenishing of the earth that's spoken of here. And like you're saying, of course, that means that the birth rate has to get to and stay at a certain point. But I would suspect, you see all the curves, they start over the centuries. So we're toddling along, and suddenly we've got this population explosion. I think that. So in terms of replenishing the earth, I think there is the aspect of totting up the total population, topping it up, if you like, and making sure we don't fall too low, so we get the problems that you're describing. But also, I do think it's legitimate within that way of thinking to say that the earth is only a finite size. There's a finite set of resources in the earth. And you know me, I'm not an environmentalist per se or anything like that, but I do think we need to be careful about what we understand by replenish. Replenish is not just the same thing as just fill it, just pack it full, just as much as you can, just as many kids as you can, as much building as you can, as many cities as you can build, just build. I don't think that's what's meant. I think there's a quality of filling rather than just a quantity of filling. So I think this replenishment is it's fruitfulness, and yes, it's multiplication. That's necessary, but the replenishment ought to be I don't like this term, but to enable us to flourish. That I think that God's intention in this covenant, as with so much of his work, is for the flourishing of humanity. I don't think that includes just chocking, to get the whole place chock full of people, till we're all shoulder to shoulder. So that's a silly point, but there has to be some kind of a point at which we approach fullness, I think, if we bear in mind that full has to mean something other than just numerically as high as we can go. So that's one thing. A second thing, I think it's really important to consider, and I think, to be fair, you've conceded this point. It's really important to consider the experience of the individual. You and I both know, individually and as friends, we know of people who have not been able to have children, and I think it's really important that we don't take this verse and enable them in the way that we talk about it. It's really important they don't get the impression that they've done something wrong because the Lord has withheld from them the ability to have children, or those parents who have hoped for years for a child and they've ended up having one kid, and then, like you're saying, they dote on that child. Of course they do. There's the grace of God in that, and there's a blessing of God in that as well. So I think the point you were making is an important one to I think to hold firmly to, that we're talking about in the aggregate. We're talking about the replenishment of the earth not simply by every individual woman having as many babies as she can have, and anybody that fails to have 10 is somehow deficient. I think it's really important that we don't allow anybody to read into what we're saying anything along those lines. God is gracious to us all. His grace for some means many children, for others it means one child, maybe not even one child, and God is still good to those people. So I think it's an important thing to kind of to consider.
It is. Can I come back on both of those?
Yeah, of course you can.
So I'll do the second one first because it's fresh on my mind. So I agree. I think I agree with everything you've said, but I think it can go bigger than that, because I think there can be individual disobedience,
of course,
to this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, whilst I'm very happy to concede that there are individuals who can't, and then some that shouldn't, try and have children. I don't want to get lost in it. Like, I'm not the kind of person who's when you've had your fourth child and the doctor says, look, if you have another one, there's a 90% chance you will die in childbirth. They are obligated to try and have more children. I'm not after a wooden application of this, but there can be deliberate infertility that is I'm just going to say unhealthy.
Sure.
At this point, and is contrary to this general scriptural way of thinking about family, about children, about reproduction, and this is an assumption of the modern world that people don't even realize they have. Just like you will hear, and I want to bring it to Christians because the world's going to do what the world's going to do, and I don't expect them to follow our way of thinking. But it is common amongst Christians to say, "Oh, don't have children straight away when you get married," as though that's a choice you automatically have the right over.
Right.
That is an assumption that is directly from our culture, and is contrary to God's way of thinking.
So I think your use of the word fruitfulness, I think that is the heart of the discussion. So there are people who all Christians should be fruitful. Yeah. I think that's fair to say. All Christians should be fruitful. Yeah. What that might look like,
it's actually a definition of being a Christian in some senses.
Indeed,
because if you don't have fruit, you're not a Christian.
Right. Yeah. So what that looks like for an individual might be, how will you support your church community, your church family, whatever language you want to use? Are you able to help out? You know, maybe you've had your kids and you're a bit older, male or female. Are you able to help out with the younger couples who need a bit of help with their kids? So it's an attitude of fruitfulness. What can you do to help out? Have them round, take their kids off them for a bit, if they need to, if the couple needs a bit of help or what have you. Just where can you be a help to your church, to the Christians around you, to enable that fruitfulness, even if that isn't directly a result of your own biology. Do you see what I mean?
Exactly. You're enabling fruitfulness in others.
Exactly.
Who might think I can't. Yeah. I'm at my limit, or I can't. Can't go any further. Yeah. So I think that's really key as we see it in the round, because what you don't want is sort of individual people who through no fault of their own, through the hard providences of God, either are not married or they are married and they can't have children. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah. So we're talking about those who, in disobedience, choose fruitlessness.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about, and that's applicable in all sorts of different ways, isn't it? The deliberate choice of fruitfulness in direct contradiction to God's command for us to be fruitful. Yeah.
And I think that, and this will lead us on to discussions of like contraception and all those sorts of things. But I think that basically you shouldn't get married if you're not ready to have children.
Right.
That is an alien notion to the scriptures. You might find support for don't get married at this point. Like you can read Paul's advice in 1 Corinthians 7, where he talks about this present distress.
Yeah.
That you might say, okay, it might be unwise to get married during the middle of a war. Not necessarily a sin, but maybe unwise, maybe unhelpful. But if you're going to get married, then you need to be ready for the possibility of children, and not just ready for the possibility of something going not according to your plan, it needs to be something you're willing to embrace and thank God for if he sends it your way. And he might not send it your way, but that is the norm. It's been the norm through human history, and it is the norm today, other than our deliberate intervention. And I think, again, we get this from our culture, is that we are sovereign over that area of our lives. And I just don't think we should take that approach. We can understand biology, we can understand rhythm and cycle and how things work, and try and be careful at certain times. Like I say, they tend to say if you've just had a baby, it's quite easy to get pregnant straight away, and that might not be the best thing because your body is still recovering. And so you can be wise and you can be self-restrained, but to just say we are not having children for such and such number of years, to me, I don't see how you can get to that position through a biblical mindset. That is something that comes from the world, that's been imposed on the scriptures. And like contraception's there, it's in the world. We've got to figure out whether Christians are allowed to use it at all, whether it should be normative and those sorts of things. But we've just imbibed it all. There's Christians who for years use abortifacient contraceptions that they don't even realize what it's doing to them.
Right.
And again, the pill would be the main disruptor in all of this, more than other forms of contraception. And I think it's Mary Harrington I got this sort of expression from, that the pill is the first transhuman.
Yeah. I think that is, it's either Mary Harrington or possibly Louise Perry.
Yeah, So, and because what it's doing is it's taking a functioning system and altering it so that it doesn't work, which is the opposite of what medicine does.
That's right. Yeah.
Which we're all in favor of. Like and we know, I'm sure I know a new number of women who just couldn't get pregnant. Their cycles seemed to be working, but they just weren't getting pregnant, and it was usually some sort of hormonal thing. And the doctors were able to give some sort of supplement or some sort of other intervention, and what it did, it made what was there creational that wasn't functioning properly because of the fall. It made it work properly, and then they have children, and then often once you have the first, it sort of corrects things. That's good. Like that's the kind of thing that Christians love science for. But the pill is the opposite. The pill is saying this deep creational cycle that God's put in me, I'm going to choose to put it on hold. I'm going to choose to master it and be Lord over my own body. In that instance, I think those kinds of things are antithetical to this idea of biblical fruitfulness. I'm happy to come back onto those, but before I forget, the first point about numbers, I agree that quality matters. It's not just about quantity. And sometimes we're all pretty judgy at times. Sometimes you think, should have stopped, mate. Like you should have focused on what you had. And I'm sure many people have leveled that at me over the years. Sometimes it would be better to stop or try and reduce rather than go on and have more kids and then hate you and rebel against you and end up in the world. I understand that. But I guess my caution is God hasn't given us any metrics for what fullness is.
Sure.
I'm basically of the school that says he'll sort it out. It's up to us to be fruitful. It's up to us to multiply in a way that is sort of manageable and healthy and abundant. And God will call time on it.
Sure.
When he wants to. Because there have been doomsday prophets about the number of people all through human history. Just in the history of our country, Malthus is 16 something. There's no possible way we can feed everyone if the population of England reaches something like 1 million. And then, it just keeps happening. Like if the population reaches this, it's going to be disaster. If the population reaches this, there's going to be no more food. And just none of that has been true. And I just really, I have no trust in supranational or national governments to make those decisions. I just leave it to God.
Sure.
And I think history has been borne out, as someone has said. Human beings are born with one mouth and two hands. So yes, you consume, but you do twice as much as you consume. And I think that's sort of borne out in the world, even in this world.
I think to back to the point that I was making is fruitfulness is not something that is solely confined to the bearing of children.
Yes.
And I think it's really important that obviously that's included, and that's a very important part because the multiplication happens through the bearing of children. But fruitfulness is much broader than that as well. And so, like you're saying, one mouth, two hands, to give to those that are in need. You know, there's a constant refrain in the New Testament to give to those that are in need, to help the poor. These sorts of all of that for me is included in the replenishing of the earth. It's our responsibility as Christians to live our lives in such a way, yes, that we're having children if God grants them, but also so many other things as well that will allow, and some of the words you've used, like the health, the health of the people. I don't mean sort of the medical health. I mean their well-being in terms. Again, that's a medicalized term, isn't it? Their spiritual well-being, for want of a better phrase. That is part of our responsibility in the replenishment of the earth. It's not just quantity; it's quality as well.
Okay.
And
I think that. But what I'm saying is that starts with a baseline of having children.
Yeah.
Again, societally, groups, but if you don't have the children, you're kidding yourself about the levels of your fruitfulness.
Sure, that's fair. And I would probably just come at it from the other angle and just say, not to be deliberately unfruitful.
Yeah.
Anything that you're doing that is deliberately is designed for you to be unfruitful in contradiction to this command, this Noahic, this element of the Noahic covenant, is disobedience and therefore is sin and should be repented of.
Yeah. And I think then taking it beyond the children, like you could have technically fulfilled the basic maths of the command by having, like, say, 6 children. But if you raise those children to be destructive, damaging, and they rape and pillage the earth,
exactly,
then actually you've failed.
Correct.
Even though you passed the maths test.
Correct.
You haven't replenished the earth.
Correct.
So I think we're in full agreement on that. I think that the mathematical element was so normal for human history, and like often of necessity. Like we forget that if you didn't have children to work your land, you would be poor going forward. Like there was a necessity to having children if you wanted to live well, to replenish the earth in any small way around you. So we forget that. But now that is being broken, and I think it has been broken in general, that's where the work needs to be. Yes, we need to continue to tell Christians how to live well and how to be responsible and entrepreneurial and build and grow and bless and those sorts of things. But I think we've lost the foundational element in seeing having children as a normative blessing. Yes, you can have children, do bad things with them or raise them badly, but just to say, normally this is the standard. Most people should get married. Most of those people will have children. Let's organize our churches, our societies to support the normal thing that is the foundation of a country, of a society. Let's organize that, and that we're not there. We're somewhere completely else. And within that, there is space for the single, for the widowed, all those sorts of individual circumstances. But our churches today are so obsessed with not upsetting the people who fall outside of norms that we've lost our norms. And I think it's and it's not just in this issue. It's in other issues as well. And don't get, like, there is a real pain to childlessness and those sorts of things, which the church needs to be able to address. But I think that's more healthily addressed when you have an established norm of families, decent-sized families that are welcoming and engaging, and like, I'm sure you'll know either single people or married people in the church who, for whatever reason, couldn't have children. So they're not in the chose not to, delayed. They wanted to have children. And I was speaking to a dear saint the year, and it was painful for her. Like, she's an old lady now. She said, I think I can see why God didn't allow us to have children. But he did, through that, allow us to do so much to bless the church. Like you were saying, to bless other people.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
And so that's what we're after. That we're not saying, oh, because you don't fit the norm, you're excluded. We're actually saying having a norm means people can be included. That's in the healthiest way. And they, even though they would have wished it to be different, and we pray for people who are trying to have children and can't, that if God would grant it, they would. But there is a healthy way for these people to be a blessing, an amazing blessing above what they could if their circumstances were different. But we've lost the baseline. Is my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we're probably run out of time because we've gone past the hour mark now.
Yeah.
So I want to pick up on this, and I want to ask you about a question around why Paul says it's good to remain unmarried. So I think you're going to have to answer that in relation to this argument. But helpful stuff. Thank you very much. It's been a good chat. We'll pick up on the Noahic covenant again because there's loads more of it. We've just looked at the very first aspect of it. So for our viewers and listeners, we'll come back to this and talk about all the other elements of the Noahic covenant. And if you've got any questions that you want to ask us, feel free to kind of send them to us however you'd like to. If you've got our phone numbers, you can text us. Obviously, you can put comments on YouTube or however you want to get in touch. Ask us questions about these things. We're happy to be challenged. It's not a problem at all. But let's just wrap up then, Stephen, with those words from Ephesians, and we'll see folks in the next one. So grace be with all them that love our Lord Jesus Christ in sincerity. Amen.
Amen.